Imagine this. You wake up, and everything is silent. No buzzing from your phone, no hum from your refrigerator. You step outside, and there's chaos, no traffic lights, no working ATMs, and no way to contact anyone. The US power grid has gone completely dark. This isn't just a worst-case scenario. Cyberattacks on critical infrastructure have surged by 140% in recent years. The FBI and Department of Energy warn that foreign adversaries like China, Russia, and Iran have already breached parts of the US grid. In 2021, a ransomware attack on the Colonial Pipeline disrupted fuel supplies across the East Coast, causing panic and shortages. But what if the next attack targets power stations instead? Experts estimate that a nationwide blackout could cause $40 billion in daily economic losses. And here's the real concern: many parts of the grid run on outdated technology, making them vulnerable to cyber sabotage. So, is the US prepared for the unthinkable? Or is a devastating cyber-induced blackout just a matter of time? Let's dive deeper. The US power grid is often called the most complex machine ever built, and for good reason. It connects over 11,000 power plants, 600,000 miles of transmission lines, and 55,000 substations to deliver electricity to more than 330 million people. But here's the problem: this vast network was never designed with cybersecurity in mind. The grid is a patchwork of aging infrastructure, some of it dating back to the 1950s and 60s, making it highly vulnerable to cyber threats. 3 interconnected grids. The US power grid is actually 3 separate networks. 1. The Eastern Interconnection, covering everything east of the Rocky Mountains. 2. The Western Interconnection, stretching from the Rockies to the Pacific. 3. The Texas Interconnection, an independent grid covering most of Texas. These grids operate almost independently, which means a cyber attack targeting one region might not take down the entire country. But a coordinated attack? That's a different story. Smart technology, a double-edged sword. The rise of smart grids, which use digital controls and AI to optimize energy use, is improving efficiency. But it's also creating new vulnerabilities. Hackers can now target remote access points, smart meters, and even power plant control systems. A 2023 report from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, found that cyberattacks against U.S. energy infrastructure increased by 140% in the past 5 years. Even more concerning, Russian hackers already breached parts of the U.S. grid in 2017. Aging infrastructure, a crisis waiting to happen. Beyond cyber threats, the grid faces physical weaknesses. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, ASC, 70% of U.S. transmission lines are 25 years or older. Power outages caused by weather disasters alone cost the U.S. economy $150 billion annually. So, what happens if cybercriminals combine digital sabotage with physical attacks? A well-coordinated strike could cripple power supply for weeks or even months. How prepared is the U.S. for such a crisis? That's the real question. Imagine waking up to a nationwide blackout: no power, no internet, no access to banks, hospitals, or transportation. How could hackers pull this off? Let's break down their most dangerous attack methods. First method: malware and ransomware attacks. One of the most common tactics is injecting malware into power grid control systems. In 2022, ransomware attacks on critical U.S. infrastructure surged by 87%, with energy companies being a prime target, FBI, 2023. Russia's NotPetya attack in 2017 showed how devastating malware can be, causing $10 billion in global damages and affecting power systems in Ukraine. Second method: phishing and social engineering. Hackers don't always attack the grid directly, they often trick employees into giving them access. 91% of cyberattacks start with phishing emails. In 2020, an energy company employee in the US clicked a malicious link, allowing hackers to install malware on critical systems. Thirdly, there is supply chain attacks. Instead of attacking power plants, hackers target vendors and suppliers. In 2021, the SolarWinds cyberattack compromised 18,000 organizations, including U.S. government agencies and energy firms. This backdoor entry gave hackers months of undetected access. In addition, we have the direct SCADA and ICS attacks. Many power grid systems rely on supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA, and industrial control systems, ICS. These systems weren't built with cybersecurity in mind, making them vulnerable. In 2015 and 2016, Russian hackers remotely shut down Ukraine's power grid, leaving 230,000 people in the dark. If these attack methods have worked before, how safe is the U.S. power grid today? Cyberattacks on power grids are no longer just a theory, they've already happened. Let's look at some of the most chilling real-world cases. Ukraine, the first cyber blackout, 2015 and 2016. In December 2015, Russian hackers launched a coordinated cyberattack on Ukraine's power grid. They infiltrated control systems, remotely shut down 30 substations, and left 230,000 people without electricity for hours. A year later, they struck again, using advanced malware called Indestroyer, which directly targeted the grid's industrial control systems. The US, Russian and Chinese threats. Though no cyberattack has yet crippled the US grid, multiple breaches have exposed vulnerabilities. In 2020, the US government confirmed that Russian hackers had gained access to power plant networks in all 50 states. In 2021, a Chinese hacking group attempted to insert malware into systems connected to US critical infrastructure. India, the Mumbai Blackout, 2020. In October 2020, a massive blackout hit Mumbai, India's financial capital, shutting down trains, hospitals, and businesses. Investigators later found traces of Chinese malware in India's power grid. Reports suggested it was a warning amid rising tensions between the two countries. These attacks are proof that power grids are vulnerable. The question is, could a major cyberattack take down the entire US grid? Imagine this: one moment, the lights are on. The next, the entire US power grid is down. No electricity. No communication. No end in sight. How bad could it get? Let's break it down. Within minutes, 911 emergency lines overload, leaving first responders unable to keep up. Traffic lights go dark, causing gridlock in major cities. Hospitals switch to backup generators, but many have only 48 to 72 hours of fuel. Grocery stores, banks, and gas stations shut down immediately. Most rely on real-time transactions that require internet and electricity. Without power, ATMs stop working, and cash quickly becomes king. Without electricity, water treatment plants fail, leading to contaminated drinking water. Refrigerated food begins rotting, and grocery store shelves empty within 48 hours as supply chains collapse. Fuel shortages skyrocket, as gas stations rely on electric pumps. The Department of Transportation estimates that food and medicine deliveries would slow to a fraction of normal levels. By week 2, the stock market crashes, wiping out trillions in economic activity. Businesses shut down, and millions lose their jobs overnight. Crime surges as desperation sets in, looting, black market deals, and organized crime take control. Government officials declare a national emergency, and the National Guard is deployed to maintain order. By a month, if power isn't restored, the economy enters free fall. Food riots, mass migrations, and humanitarian crises overwhelm emergency services. Experts predict that in a long-term blackout, over 70% of the U.S. population could face severe hardship or displacement. A total blackout isn't just a temporary inconvenience, it could push the U.S. into total collapse. The real question is, are we ready? If a cyberattack targeted the U.S. power grid today, would we be ready? The answer is complicated. While defenses exist, experts warn of major vulnerabilities. Security measures in place. The U.S. power grid has 3 major interconnections, Eastern, Western, and Texas, each designed to operate independently to limit widespread failures. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, monitors cyber threats 24/7, working alongside utility companies to defend against attacks. Additionally, the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act allocated $65 billion to upgrade grid security and resilience. But is it enough? Key vulnerabilities. Despite efforts, 60% of power companies report struggling to protect against cyber threats. The U.S. grid relies on aging infrastructure, much of it 40+ years old, making it an easy target for hackers. Even a localized cyber attack could cause a ripple effect, leading to widespread blackouts across multiple states. Expert warnings. A 2023 MIT study found that a major cyber attack could cost the U.S. economy over $1 trillion in damages within days. Meanwhile, a CISA report warns that foreign hackers have already infiltrated parts of the grid, planting malware that could be activated at any time. The U.S. is making progress, but experts agree, the nation's power grid remains a prime target, and it's not as secure as it should be.